banal and pass the course, we're probably pretty keen to hear about it. So we're looking for long talks, short talks. We don't mind if you're a first-time speaker or if you're a seasoned professional like Adam here. And we take any topic as long as you can roughly draw a line from it to technology in some way. We do have some sponsors tonight which really help out. This means that we can make this happen. So SSW is hosting and they're providing both of our speakers tonight, Adam and Anthony. And also NIB, we provide pizza. All of us hanging around here, and Trent will just give a 2-minute chat on what NIB is and what we're doing.
Wherever you are, you go up here, you'll be on the camera, and everyone can see.
All right, yeah, g'day everyone, my name's Trent. So yeah, it's great to be here and good to see SSW's offices, it's pretty cool. And yeah, enjoy the pizzas that we'll have on later on tonight. It's great that we can actually get together again too, which is awesome. So real quick, just some things about NIB. So unfortunately the pizzas aren't completely free, you get to listen to me for a couple of minutes to get the pizzas. But basically, look, we're always hiring, we're always looking for people who are really passionate about software development, passionate about building products and platforms and experiences that really make a difference. So yeah, we're conscious that not everyone knows a lot about NIB. Everyone knows about health insurance, but on the inside, we're also like a really contemporary tech company. Very advanced, I guess I shouldn't say that, but we're very contemporary in our ways of working. We're very strong at agile, very much around human-centered design, and also more recently product thinking. And the last two in particular have probably really led to a difference for us, where we don't just talk about getting stuff done, we talk about actually delivering great outcomes. From a tech point of view, we're very contemporary, use a lot of AWS, we're very much in that camp. DevOps is a real thing for us. We are very much a Node and React and JavaScript shop. What else do we use? We use serverless technologies, Auth0, for instance, is a progressive sort of SaaS tool. We have that and other tools in our midst. Culture-wise, very friendly, very supportive, very learning and sharing type culture, which is always really exciting and a great way to learn. And finally, we're a very flexible and a very remote working environment as well. So we're essentially remote first now, and also we very much recognise the balance between work and life, and we want to make sure we get that right, and that's a big part of what we do. So anyways, if anyone is interested or wants to know a little bit more about what we do, maybe now, maybe later, feel free to hit me up, or Clay, or I see Jack's here from NIB as well, for maybe a coffee or even like a virtual coffee over Zoom or something. Awesome. All right, cheers.
Thank you, Trent. And carrying on, we've got two great speakers tonight. So Anthony Nguyen he was just over there, but he'll be up here shortly. And of course, Adam Cogan, who we've mostly all seen before. We have all been working remotely for a fair while. So I want to remind you that we're all here to learn, we're all here to get along, and if you see someone out on their own, invite them to join your circle, have pizza, adopt the Pac-Man formation, so when you're standing around talking, just make sure there's space so someone else can come and join in and enjoy everything with you. We're really here to meet the community and work together. And then finally, news. So Adam likes to run news, so you can jump in if you want, but has anyone got any tech news from the last month or so? I know it's been 12 months since we've been here, but let's just try and hold it down to the last month or so we're not here all night. So, big news in my world was that Okta has bought Auth0, or at least promised to. So I think it was for several $1 billion, joining two of the biggest players in the SaaS authentication space together. It's been a really big deal as far as I can see.
Is it good or bad?
I think in the end it will be good for everybody. It would be bad if we didn't have players like Microsoft and Google also playing in the authentication space. It would create a bit of a monopoly and maybe stifle innovation, but thankfully we have these other big players that are really making sure things move forward in a open manner, rather than just becoming, hey, you've got to use Auth0 if you want to use OAuth or OpenID Connect.
So how many people already knew of this news? All right, most. All right. So they bought it for $6.5 billion. It's a big deal because Okta were the leaders in the security space. So when you go out there, you can either choose Okta, Auth0, Azure B2C, guy buys the biggest growing guy. I don't see it as a good thing personally. We do quite a bit of work with Identity Server with the two dudes that run that. That's Brock and Dominic Bauer from Germany. And I messaged him earlier in the week about it, and he sent me an email, and I'll just read it to you. He said, look, I think it's essentially Okta admitting that the recent attempts to modernize their token server have failed. Straight to
No argument there.
their older version, he's talking about the SAML based one, was popular, but their OAuth one is severely lacking. Maybe they don't see it that way, but yeah, they got beat by Auth0, so this is how they've overcome their defeat. Which I can't see it as, I can't see it as positive for us, but we'll see what happens. We'll see if they cause damage to Auth0, which is a bit of a golden child. It's very good, and we use it a lot.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from Okta is they're going to keep the two brands alive and keep the companies somewhat separate for the moment. I expect in a couple of years they'll be pretty smushed together. But for my point of view as a developer, as long as we do have other players like Microsoft playing in that identity space and making sure we do keep this area moving forward, we should, in theory, be okay.
That's not you, Clay. Don't worry.
It looks better for your guys if I blame it on me. I'm trying to help you here, Adam. So the other one that tweeted up today, did you see that there's been 1,600 or 1,200 new words added to the German dictionary? But important for us is one of those words is overzoomed, which, pardon the fact I don't speak German, so my German accent will be atrocious, means the stress caused by too many virtual meetings. So that's now become a
What's the word?
overzoomed. Overzoomed.
Oh, overzoomed.
Yeah, but
Okay.
overzoomed is my attempt at sounding German.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, apparently it's now an official word in the German dictionary that people get stressed out by too many virtual meetings. Still? Yeah, so also Microsoft Server Exchange security for, certainly. We want to have more info on that.
So did this cause trouble with only on-premise?
Yeah.
Well, you've got bigger problems, aren't you, if you're still on-premise with your mail?
So you're saying it could be a Microsoft strategy to promote people having the cloud?
No.
You heard it here first.
Not a quote from me.
Not live stream or anything, is it?
Yes, it is being live streamed. Be very careful what you guys say. I know we're in Newcastle.
And all around the world.
Yeah, no, I'm not entirely sure of the details. I just thought it was interesting. It was in the item read from Tech News. It was in the Sydney Morning Herald or something like that. Some fairly big business news.
Well, it takes a lot for Microsoft to crack open the code of a product that they haven't looked at the code for a long time. So it was apparently serious.
Anything else? Does anyone want to talk about FireEye and one of the biggest hacks that's gone on in a long time? No? Sure, come on, security people. I see sometimes the security out here. Sorry, I think I don't have the best information on that, but yeah, the FireEye and what's the other one? That product underlies a lot of security things, opened up the hole that potentially impacted every arm of the US government. You have access to everything. SolarWinds, yep. So FireEye's now got stuff on that. Okay. Got anything else happening?
Plenty, but I want to get Anthony on here so I can do my session after him.
Alrighty.
So I might just, for those that don't know SSW, can I do a quick intro?
You certainly can. It's
So
encouraging.
we're a consulting company, mainly Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. We also have an office in China. We do consulting on the Microsoft stack primarily. Most of our guys are React, Angular. These days we're doing a lot of .NET 5 is on almost all the projects we're working on at the moment, and Azure is a big part of it. I am also an MVP. There's a few other MVPs in the company. I'm a Microsoft Regional Director. Have been doing that for 20 years. But before that, I grew up in a farm in Muswellbrook, or not in Muswellbrook, outside along the Hunter River. And when I was about 15, the Neville Rand, I don't know who remembers Neville Rand? Okay, well I used to go to all the protests holding up signs. One of my signs, I always remember not really understanding what it said, but it said Rand's Rand. Like, my mum thought that was quite funny. Anyway, it didn't really matter. But we lost our farm eventually. You can't beat the government. And so we didn't have our farm anymore, so we went to Big Smoke, Sydney. I went to University of Technology, which is pretty good considering I was about 16. I'd never even heard of the word university, which is pretty good. Anyway, so from that point on, I've been running SSW for most of my time. And Newcastle, I started noticing Newcastle was getting really nice. The university is one of the nicest buildings I've seen. I'm sure some people that are more arty than me might say there's something weird about it, but I just find it amazing. Like, I think it's like the Opera House of Newcastle. And then what they've done with your version of the Darling Harbour, with a better name, I just think Honeysuckle is awesome. I just think that I'm sure there's plenty of reasons why people don't like the light rail. Change is always not good, but it's quiet. It seems much faster than one in Sydney. It is pretty bloody cool. Like, I am very impressed. That down that other side, where the train used to go, we had unlimited. We had a person coming up here painting graffiti every week. So it was a problem. And that park is gorgeous. Instant big palms. I just think that the Newcastle Council have done an amazing job. Like, if you compare them with what goes on in the Sydney councils, and I deal with many councils, they're light years ahead. They get things done. Must be less rules up here or something. Maybe less people complain. But it is really progressive. Now, I used to go to China a lot before coronavirus. Now, you're not at the speed of the Chinese. When you arrive at the airport, you stay there for a month and you come back, there's a new building. It is, that's another level, but you guys are getting close. And it's good that I feel very privileged that you guys held your first user group back here at SSW. I think it's good. We only just got things up and running. We have a few guys here. Hopefully we'll have a few more guys, but if you think about the changes that coronavirus has brought us, it's just starting. Like, what is the point of having a big mortgage, living out, if you live anywhere in Sydney, like inner west to, Parramatta to Wester, you're going to take a long time to have good quality of life, to get into the city, to see a beach, any of that stuff. You live here. I know things are getting expensive up here. I feel like it's getting like Scandinavia up here. Things are getting expensive. Have you seen the beer prices? They're ridiculous. Everything's getting expensive, and I guess you guys are going to get a bit snobby soon. But I think that this is the place to be. Like, we looked at lots of places, and I thought this was the place to be. Now, Anthony has worked at SSW for about 5 years in the Melbourne office. He's run some of the biggest projects there. He's the only developer I know that does every single thing on a keyboard. He doesn't. Do you even own a mouse? Right. So if something catastrophic happens, it's usually when I've asked him to install something and it doesn't support a certain keystroke. Yes, that's a major problem. So I'm always surprised when Microsoft make a big deal about issuing updates keystrokes because I always think I don't care. Got a mouse. Some people do yet. So he also during coronavirus we had to do a few major applications very quickly. First of all, coincidentally, we did the coronavirus app for the Chinese government. How's that? That's a weird one to do. We didn't. That was before I'd left China, so we didn't realise it was going to be that big at the time. And then coronavirus hit us just like everyone else. It was a pretty scary time. But we also got some new clients out of it. We're doing, COVID initiatives because of that. One of those initiatives Anthony led, and that was these little bands that they have in Victoria. So he's been down in Victoria under the governorship of Dan, and you can probably ask him any questions what it was like to live there. But all jokes aside, I will tell you that the Brisbane guys and the Sydney guys, we just dealt with coronavirus without too much trouble. The guys in Melbourne, they had a lot more stress. We had a few guys that were really struggled by being locked up at home and not, getting their one hour yard time. They really struggled, and it was amazing to see the difference between the different states. And even though we're all in Australia, it was a different experience. But Anthony was leading a project where we were pushing more data in seconds than the Azure team, so the Azure Stream Analytics. So he was doing all that stuff in there. Are you going to touch on that tonight, or it's all security?
All security.
Okay, so you won't hear about that, but maybe he could do a talk on that because that was an amazing project. Got a lot of press down in Melbourne as well. So with that, I think I will leave it to you, Anthony.
Just before Anthony kicks off, dietary requirements for pizza. Is there anyone who isn't eating pizza? I'll get some vegetarian pizzas because I know there's some veggies in the audience, but other than that, everybody good for this greasy goodness? Excellent. All right, thank you.
I would like to say thank you to Adam for flying me all the way from Melbourne to do this very first presentation in person for SSW for more than 12 months now. And he is actually also the very first user group in this brand new office in Newcastle. So for the people that is online, it looks something like this. It's very modern and it's beautiful. All right, so quick poll. Raise your hand. All right. Good job. All right. Now, next question. Do you think this is the best looking tech company office in Newcastle? all right. That's fine. Okay, so the topic for today is, well, for normal people, it's basically just authentication, right? The topic that, according to the CEO of Auth0, who basically just lost his job, nobody cares about, but everyone actually needs one. All right, and I actually, as a consultant, I have to agree because I've been in so many specification meetings with the clients, and it all turns out something like this, right? So you ask they ask you what is the most important MVP functionality, and whenever you say something to do with these notifications, you get thrown out the window, right? Because to them, I think it's all simple, right? You can just roll your own. And the only problem is that after a few years, something like this happened, right? So Facebook stored like millions of user password in plain text for years, right? So according to Google, the number one reason for any website to be hacked is for the password to be compromised. And who knows about this website? Perfect. So so if you know, that's good. This website is created by one of Adam's good friends, Troy Hunt. And as you can see, there are more than 10 billion accounts that has been, according to him, pawned. So it's no surprise when this guy is actually in the list. So it is estimated that the cost of the cybercrime is going to be 3 times of Australian GDP in 2021. And so so getting the authentication story right is actually hard and it's not easy at all. Okay, before we jump in, it's a little bit about myself. So there is my ID token. I'm Anthony, and I'm solution architect from Melbourne. And yes, so the Melbourne is currently the holder of the second most livable city in the world, after Vienna, and it's also the second toughest coronavirus lockdown in the world after Wuhan. So if you ask me about what I feel about 6 months ago, that is what I feel like. Right? So I'm talking to Adam and I feel like I'm locked in a cage. So I've been in the industry for more than 15 years now, and for the last 5 years I have a special interest in JavaScript, and that is the only language that I know it will take me the rest of my life to learn the whole thing. And by the way, I finished the first book on the left in my first year. I'm still going through the half of the book now. All right, so my that is the only language that actually keep me awake at night as well. And so my favorite programming principle is dry, so don't repeat yourself, and yakni, right? So you unrun it. So that's why this is my favorite book. So I recommend everyone to try to read it. All right, so a little bit about housekeeping, right? So we actually have an app on iOS and Android. It's called SSW Rewards app. And the idea is that you can install this on the app. Every time you go to a user group here in Newcastle or in Sydney or Brisbane or Melbourne, you scan it and you earn the SSW point. And then you can get one of these cool things, right? So I think the coolest one is the actual Google Home speaker. All right, so let's quickly go through the agenda for tonight. So first we're going to go through the identity access management, what it really means. Then we're going to talk about the authentication service, and then the OAuth 2 protocol, and see how the SSO is implemented using OpenID Connect on top of the OAuth 2.0. And then we'll see briefly how we can implement OpenID Connect using Duende Identity Server, which is the newer version of the Identity Server 4. And then we'll wrap up with a real hands-on demo. All right, so what is actually identity management and access management really mean? So you convince your product owner and your boss that they actually need to be considered seriously, and you ask them, what do you want? So most likely the conversation will go something like this. Yeah, so obviously it's not that simple. So let me go through some of the things that you have to consider when you implement a identity access management system. So the first one is authentication as service, single sign-on and single sign-out, the access control for APIs. You want to have some sort of full control over how it looks and feels, the workflow. The federation gateway, whether it is SaaS or is self-hosted. We actually have a cool website called SSW Rules website, where you can consider and have a look at more than 2,500 rules that we have about the software development best practices in general. All right, so let's go through some of the requirements. All right, the authentication as service. So let's take a look at the real enterprise application like Facebook and see what sort of application they really have. Right? So most likely you're going to have a web application like React and Angular and MVC. We have a desktop application like Electron. You have mobile application, whether it is React Native or hybrid. Machine-to-machine integrations. You have the admin portal for the employee to sign in and configure the systems, and the list goes on and on and on. So what you want is, instead of duplicating the same functionality inside each of the application to handle the common application workflows, what you want is you want to outsource that to a centralized authentication and authorization server. So they can handle all that cross concern for you. All right, so the next one is single sign-on. So what it actually means. So single sign-on is also known as the federated identity. So what single sign-on means is once the user has signed into one of your applications, when they switch to the different application, you want them to be signed in seamlessly without asking them to remember and enter the same credential again. So for SSO, as of today, you really have two major options. The first one is SAML 2.0, and the second one is OpenID Connect. Right, so let's quickly have a look at the history of that two products. All right, so the need for this single sign-on really comes from the enterprises, where for their user staff, they need to log into the domain Active Directory, and then also have access so many applications online, the web applications in this particular case. So according to one estimate in 2021, for a staff of the Fortune 500, they have more than 90 different applications that need to log in during the day. So in 2002, SAML was created. So SAML stands for Security Assertion and Markup Language. And the other hand, we have the OAuth. So OAuth stands for Open Authorization. So it is not authentication, it's open authorizations. It was created, the first version is 2010. It was initiated from the OpenID in 2006. And the version that we use at the moment, which is OAuth 3.0, that was released in 2012. The very first version of OpenID Connect was actually about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. So SAML has been in the industry for nearly 20 years now, but the OAuth 2.0 is less than 10 years. All right, so let's talk about SSO with OpenID Connect. But before that, let's actually focus on the OAuth 2.0 protocol. So according to Wikipedia, it is a framework that controls or delegating the authorizations to a protected resources, which can be an application or file. Let's try to understand these particular definitions by using a real-world example. So the example we're talking about is a valet parking, right? So imagine you're driving a Tesla Model X, right? You need to go to Newcastle to do a user group, but you're too lazy to park your car, so what you can do, you can use the valet parking service. So what it is instead of giving the valet parking driver your actual key, you give them a special key, and that key is called the valet key. And the valet key only gives you access to two things. So you can open the door, and you can drive the car to a secure parking slot. With that key, the driver can't open the glove box and access your personal information. So the OAuth is delegating a limited access to the resource by giving that key, right? So that key is the access token. All right. So in the real life, I'm sure you've seen something like this, where application like Google is asking you if you want to grant permission to a certain applications to access a subset of the resource that you want. So in this particular case, it is the Google contacts. All right, so how exactly the authorization server, in this case, for example, the Google, is giving back the grants or the access right to the applications, right? So if we use Postman before, and you open up the authorization tab, and you select OAuth 2.0 as the type, under the grant type, you see 5 different authorization code. The different grant types. So I'm trying to explain all the 5 different grant types using a real life project that we actually have in SSW. So that's called SSW DevOps. All right. So this project actually came out of a real life a company retreat that we do every year. Actually 2 years ago. Last year we didn't do it because of coronavirus. So the guys in Sydney, they really love beers, right? So we end up building a system that dispense the beers through a kegerator, and it's fully controlled with IoT and software hubs, right? So let's try to focus on the 4 different roles for the exercise, right? So the first one is John, right? So he is a solution architect in Sydney, and he loves beer. We have DevOps application, which is an iPad applications. We have SSW Sophie Hub, which is that thing there. It's a large LCD display with a fingerprint reader and the facial recognition. And of course, the one that controls the beers, like the whole beers. All right, the very first flow is authorization code flow. And this one is the most popular. And here's how it works. So John came to the office, and he came to DevOps and said, I want a beer, right? DevOps said that, all right, if you want a beer, you need to go to Sophie Hub and get the beer authorization code. And the DevOps is pointing to the direction of the Sophie Hub. So basically redirecting John to go to Sophie Hub. So he comes to Sophie Hub and said that, hey, I need a beer authorization code. And
it's off the whole time. So do I need it because I can hear my voice?
There's a few people complaining they couldn't hear you well.
All right, it's a bit too loud. All right, cool. So John then the Sophie Hub actually asked John to make sure that he's over 18, right? And then you can drink alcohol, and you need to sign in as well. So he used the fingerprint, and he confirmed that he's over 18 years old. All right, and then Sophie Hub print out a little piece of paper with the authorization code, and then tell John to go back to the DevOps application and enter that key. So when John does that, the application itself then make a call behind the scene using HTTP post with a predefined client secret that was given to the DevOps applications so that it can exchange for the beer access token. And using the beer access token, the application then open up the calculator and then start dispensing the beer. So that is the authorization code flow. All right, so obviously there's an issue here because we actually hard-coded the client secret on the application itself. And obviously that is not something that you can do because with a hacker, with the application on the hand, they can just hack it at any time. All right, so to fix this, the OAuth standard comes out with a new flow for the public clients. The public clients here are the the Spa page, single page applications, like React Angular, and the mobile. And it's called the authorization code with PKCE. And PKCE usually pronounced Pixie, right? And here's how it works. So the next day, John comes in, 9 o'clock again, he said, I want a beer. DevOps said that, all right, this time I'm gonna generate a random string, I'm gonna hash it using hash 256, and then I generate what's called the code challenge. And you need to go to Sophie Hub and ask for the beer authorization code. And then when Sophie Hub asks you for the code challenge, enter this string, right? So he does that. He goes in, the same thing happened, you've been asked, are you over 18? And we need to see your identification, right? He sign in, and then Sophie Hub print out again with the beer authorization code, and then John bring it to the DevOps and enter that code. But this time, DevOps then used the original string that it used to generate the code challenge and then talk to Sophie Hub via HTTP post. And this time, because Sophie Hub remembered the previous string, and then it do a hashing of the new random string that's given to it now via the back channel, it then verifies that it's the same person, the same flows, and then redirect and then return back the token for the DevOps so that it can actually asking for the beer. All right, so some of 2.0 terminology. All right, the resource owner in this case is John, right? So he owns a portion of the beers that is given to him once a month, but he usually drinks them all within the first 2 weeks. We have client, in this case is the DevOps application running on iOS. We have the authorization server, which is the software hub because he knows his ID and he can read the fingerprint. We have the resource server, in this case is the beer Caterina. And we have the redirect URI, in this case is the IP address or the URLs of the DevOps application running on iPad. The scope in this case is what is actually the resource owner wants to do. In this particular case is getting a beer, right? So response type is the flow type, is occurred, and the consent, and client ID and client secret. So client ID and client secret is a predefined pair of the identification secrets that was given to the DevOps applications from the authorization server, and it is the responsibility of the client itself to keep that secret. And finally, we have the authorization code. Authorization code is a opaque token that doesn't contain information. So the client itself needs to exchange using the predefined method for the access token. Access token is the one that gives them the access to the protected resource. All right, mind-blowing. All right, so let's quickly go through some other less popular OAuth 2.0 flows. So the first one is the implicit flow. So the key difference here is it is much simpler. So by the time after step 3, after John authenticate and sign in, we're using his fingerprint, the actual token is redirected directly to the DevOps applications. And then he can just use that and access the resource. And the reason for this to be still existing is actually for the historic reason. So long time ago, when the JavaScript is not allowed to make cross-site domain request, it is the reason why we have the implicit flow. But this flow is no longer recommended by the OAuth standard. The next one is the client credential flow, right? So this one is where most of the time you use it for the machine-to-machine integrations. So you create a client, and then using client ID and the client secret, you can then make the call to the authorization server to get the access token, and then use that access token to access the resource server directly. So it's just 3 steps. And this one is still be used again for the machine-machine integrations. So instead of using API key, for example. All right, and the last one is the password credential. And this is the reason why the OAuth was created the first time, is to prevent something like this happening, where the client just supply the username and password and get back the token and then access the resource server. All right, now there is some very limited cases when this flow is actually still valid. It is where you as a company actually owns the authorization server and also owns that the applications that prompt the user for the username and password. Otherwise, you should not be using these flows at all. All right, so that is OAuth out of the way. Let's talk about OpenID Connect. All right, so OpenID Connect is very simple. It's a very thin layer built on top of the OAuth 2.0 protocol, and use an additional token, and that token is the drop token. And to use the OpenID Connect, you just need to include the OpenID in the scope. And what happens is the server will return an additional, what is called the ID token, together with access token. And to see how it looks like, that is the response coming back from the authorization server after I can get the exchange for a token. So an access token, again, usually doesn't contain the information about the user. This particular one is called the reference token. Again, there's nothing useful out of this token at all. The only thing you can do with this is just include this token whenever you're requesting a resource, and you can make sure that you can get the data back. In the other hand, the ID token itself actually contains more information. Like you have the subject, which is who it is, the user ID. You have the email, And most important thing, you have the AMR, which is the authentication method reference, and the off time. Now, using these two combination of the claims, the client application can decide whether to let the user in or not. So for example, if the user use the username password and that is not acceptable for the banking applications, you can ask them to sign in again using the two-factor authentication. And the same thing for off time. The off time decide when was the last time the user authenticated with authorization server. If that's too long, then again, the client application can reject and can ask the user to sign in again. So that are the two different tokens. Okay, and then if the token, the ID token is accepted, then the client application simply start the session for that user using the information that is given via the ID token. All right, so to recap, the OAuth 2.0 control the delegation of authorizations to a protected resource. And OpenID Connect is built on top of the OAuth 2.0 to provide federated authentication, or SSO. That's it. It's very simple. All right, so now let's have a look at how exactly we're gonna implement a OpenID Connect and OAuth 2 in your real organization. So we really have two options in terms of the hosting. So we have SaaS, and the SaaS market itself for the identity worth about $55 billion, and it consists of two separate spaces, I guess. One is the workspace identity for the enterprises to do the SSO to different service provider, and the customer identity like of zero. The benefit of using SaaS is that it can offload the risk to a bigger service like Okta, of Zero, Ping Identity, Azure, and so on and so on. And I think the news of Okta purchasing of Zero, I think has been covered before, so that's all good. Now, so many reasons why a SaaS for identity management might not be the best case, all right? So, for example, your company not allowed to keep the personal identifiable information about the user offshore, then you have to consider the second option, that is self-hosting it. Now, when you go down the path of self-hosting the OpenID Connect authorization server, all right, so you need to consider the OpenID Connect website, which has the list of every single providers and libraries that it has been certified with the OpenID Connect, which means they follow the standard. So that is how it looks like. So for example, if you're using C#, then you have the identity server. If you use JavaScript, then you have that particular Node.js library. All right, so just quickly go through the agenda again. So we have covered the identity access management, the authorization as a service, OAuth 2.0, SSO using OpenID Connect, deployment options that we have when you have to implement an OpenID Connect yourself. All right, so next, let's have a look at the Duende Identity Server. And then we quickly do a real demo on that applications. All right, so Duende Identity Server actually the commercial version of Identity Server 4. And is obviously a certified Open Connect provider, and it is a commercial product, as I mentioned before, right? So it is, the company is coming from the maintainer of the popular Identity Server 4, Dominic and I forgot the name. Brock, excellent, thank you. And this package has been downloaded more than 100 million times in the NuGet package. And it is the top OpenID Connect of 2.0 framework for ASP.NET Core. So let's go through some of the features out of the box that is provided by Duende Identity Server. So we have the obviously OpenID Connect certified. You have full control over UX and UI flows. You can host and run the identity server anywhere you want. You use the .NET 5 C#, and you can integrate with the SAML 2.0 Active Directory and social provider like Facebook and Google. All right. Now, let's do some real demo. All right, so in this demo, what we're going to do, there's some issue there. We're going to build a brand new identity server from the scratch using the in-memory provider. So instead of I'm going to switch to my VS Code. Okay, and okay. All right, so that is my terminal. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna exit from here. Can you see it? I need to zoom it out. Is that big enough? All right. All right, so let's make a directory. Let's call it IDS demo 3. So obviously I did it 3 times. All right, so the very first thing we have to do is let's create a dedicated folder for the identity server. All right, so we're gonna make identity server here. And then what we're gonna do is just do .NET new web, all right? Web, not web API. All right, so we're gonna start with a brand new web from .NET call web project from the template. And then what we're gonna do next is we're gonna do the install the Duende Identity Server package from the NuGet. So, all right. Share screen again. All right, no worries. Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry. All right. All right, so once we've done that, Duende okay, there we go. And the server, and I'm gonna copy a code from I have here on the configure service. So we're gonna tell the web API, the web project, to add the dependency injection for the Duende Identity Server, and all right, so 1 second. So that's it. So we're going to start with empty configurations, all right? All right. And then what we can do now is we just do .NET run. Okay, so what we just did here is we just start with a blank project with the in-memory client that has no configuration. So what we actually have out of the box is a where's my Chrome? Oh, here we go. Sorry. All right, so that's I'm opening Edge. All right, so if we open up the address of that server, what you get is this one here. All right, so I'm gonna accept that. So what you see here is the OpenID Connect discovery documents. All right, so that coming out by simply adding that package and adding some live codes. And this document is the standard defined by the OpenConnect standard, where the client can use these discovery documents to, for example, authorize the client or access to the token, or using the user info endpoint. All right, so that is the first one. Now let's try to do the next one. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to create a second API. All right, so I'm going to make that. Now this time I'm going to add a new web API project. Okay, and then I'm gonna add a project, a library. All right, I'm going to start this. All right, so I'm going to go to my resource API, and I'm going to make this endpoint authorize.
All right. And then, obviously, if I go to that and .NET. So before I do that, I need to change my port to a different port. Otherwise, I can't run two things at the same time. All right, so .NET run. So now, if I go here, I get the different address, 3. Oh, sorry. Yes, of course, I forgot. So what we're going to do is we need to go to the startup of the Weather API, and over here, we're going to use the app use authentication, and then we can configure the services to use the OpenID Connect. So again, I'm going to copy this guy. All right, so I'm going to copy this. All right, so what it is it telling the API to use the identity server authentications, and the schema is better, and the name of this resource is Weather API. And I can see where the address of the identity server is. In that case, it's HTTP 5000. All right, so if I restart that, okay, if we go here, I get 401. So I'm not authorized because I don't pass any authentication token to that service. All right, so how do we configure our identity server to accept this? So, all right, so let's have a look at the startup. So at the moment we have no clients, no resources, no scope. So that's why it doesn't work. All right, so I'm going to copy another code here. So instead of this, we'll do this. All right, so what it is we have a scope. All right, the scope it defines what the client can do. So we define two scopes. One is the reading the Weather API, and one is making change to it. And then we create a API resource. In this case, it's just that API, and the list of the scope that API accept. And then finally, we define the client. In this case, the client is called machine-to-machine.client, and the grant types that this client support is the client credential. And we have a super secret password here for the client secret, and the allow scope is to read Weather API. So let me start this application again. I think 2 minutes and 5 minutes I'm done. All right, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. No. It's called Review.js. We'll do it next time in Sydney. All right, so what I have here is I have both my authorization server started on port 5000, and I have the resource API running on 5001. So in order to call the API correctly, I need to get the token first. And to do that, I do a post to the endpoint of the authorization server, the token endpoint, and I provide everything that I have. So I have the client, the scope is the weather API.read, the client ID, and the client secret. And you get back the access token. So that access token is the access token that is not a reference token. That means it does contain some information about the client applications. So now, what happens if I do a get, all right, so I do a get here. All right, so now I copy these into a token. And if I send it, oh, it's different port. And now I get back the response. All right, so if I don't get it, then if I don't do anything, then I will get no response back. Yeah, so that's for one, and that's it. So yes, so that is the quick demo of the identity server. All right. So let me get back to my presentation, and we're nearly done. All right, can you see it? Cool. All right. Now, all right, so we'll go through the demo again. We'll go that, create two package, the web API for the authorization server. We add that very simple empty list. And then what you get back is the OpenID Connect discovery document. And then if you add the client configurations, then so all this is at the moment is on memory, but you can use a different package for that. I'll go through that later. And then if you do a post to that endpoint, what you get back is the actual token. And then using that token, you then can call the authorization, the resource server to get the data. All right, so the Identity Server 4 or 5 or Duende software also provides some of the supporting packages. The first one is the Identity Server template. So you can actually roll all this example that I just did here using just one simple .NET new template. So instead of saving the configuration inside the memory, you can use Entity Framework to save that SQL database, for example. It also has integration with the ASP.NET Identity for the user store. And it also has the Quick Start UI. The Quick Start UI is simply the out-of-the-box support for login screen, reset password, and the consent form. It is not part of the Identity Server, but they just provide it to you so that you can quickly start on it. And finally, if you want to have the portal UI, the admin UI for configuring the clients, you can use this commercial add-on from this company. All right, to summary. So OpenID Connect, OAuth 2 is open standard for authorizations. And OpenID Connect is authentication on top of the OAuth 2. And Duende Identity Server is a certified OpenID provider for .NET. All right, so that concludes my presentations. So hopefully, when you get back tomorrow, you can talk to your product owner and make sure that he consider the authentication properly. And if we get thrown off the window again, there's the code for you. So there's only two types of companies: the one that has been hacked, and the ones that will be hacked. So if you get thrown off the window again, then we're hiring across the whole Australia. All right, thank you. Pizza time. Oh, not yet.
All right, yeah. So thank you, Anthony, for that. That was great. If you want a mug, can you put your hand up, Josh? Josh, have you got the QR code? So if you we have Thank you, Anthony, for putting that talk together. I know there's many hours that go into throwing something like that together. Anthony is our go-to guy on a lot of the identity server issues. How many people here have used Identity Server? Right. How many people here have used Auth0? Okay, about the same. How many people have used Azure B2C? Oh, well, if you were using the SSW mobile app, you just experienced it. But yes, and what's the other one? Okta? Anyone's used Okta? Right, okay. Which one did I miss? I missed many, I'm assuming. Now, I got to tell you, I haven't been in here at night much. Watching that train go past, sorry, what do you call it? Tram? What's it called? Light rail? What's its name? The light rail, yes. It is awesome. It is amazing. It's very good looking, very quiet. You don't need cars. John, you're old. If you're young, you get an electric scooter. I tell you what, they've really fucked up the parking, haven't they? Oh my God. Holy moly. Oh, no. But I do enjoy being just up the road from whatever's down there, because there's always police and sirens and a lot of lawlessness down the end of the street. It's entertaining. It's very good. I'll tell you what, one thing I probably didn't tell you, dealing with Newcastle Council with an old building is not much fun. It is they're very difficult, or they don't have a lot to do. They make you fix a lot of things which are almost impossible to fix, but that's good. By the way, one thing I might not have mentioned is this office is a smart office. So everything in this office is in, all the controls are KNX. So if I wanted to turn any lights on or off, I can do that. Every single light is IP addressable. The front door, you don't just lock it, you open up your app and you lock it. And when you lock it, Matt, I might get you to play with it if you want, but when the place is locked, you know, because it's all gone red, all right? So if Matt ever goes home and you still see green everywhere, you know that you can come in, have a beer, help yourself. That's all right. Yeah, why not? There we go. Look at that. All that trouble for that effect. All right. Yes. Our hiring strategy in Newcastle is a little bit tougher than the rest of the states. You have to pass communication challenge, then a coding challenge, and then we check that you can walk across the rings, because we want strong people, all right? No lazy programmers at SSW. Matt, give them a demo. Right. All right, excellent. So I have put together a little bit of a talk about what's new in the Microsoft world. I will not be able to get through it all, but that's okay. Hopefully I will give you a bit of a summary, and next month or a future month I will go through a series of demos. But here is the topics that I think about when I think about all the different solutions that we're building for customers these days. What they ask for now is different from what they asked for just a couple of years ago. And they revolve, well, these days, they start with, can it be done in a low-code, no-code solution first? The Power Platform from Microsoft is big. Then we jump into Visual Studio, VS Code issues. The data story in Microsoft is all about big data stuff. The front-end tech, that is an unresolved beast, and there's a few players in there, plus a new player. What's the new player? What? Svelte, yes, that is one. There's a new JavaScript play, but there's another one. Blazor, yeah. So the Melbourne guys are doing a lot of Blazor stuff. And then, of course, there's Azure and augmented reality. There's also FarmBots as well. Did anyone see Late Line on ABC about a week or two ago? Anyone see that one with FarmBots? All the robots going on in the farms? No? So there is a story where everybody's getting into robots, but you can't just buy a off-the-shelf SDK if you're trying to use any of these guys. Apart from if you're in Australia and you want to deal with the guys up in Emerald, they've come up with something that's pretty awesome. You can see it on iView if you like. All right, so here's our app, of course. If you haven't got it, you can scan that and you have the app. A little about me. I've been working with Azure since 2008. That was when we were building solutions on web roles, worker roles, and table storage, and that was considered 100% of Azure. All right. Now, Scott Guthrie is the main guy that chooses a lot of these investments in this, and we'll be talking about some of his decisions tonight. If you scan this now or at the end, you meant to scan at the end, you get 500 points for that. Every video you watch on SSW TV at the end, you get a QR code. I guess you could fast forward to a lot of the end of all these things and then just scan them. And we're giving away a lot of stuff. You have these things. See, you know the temperature. You can never get scalded. Isn't that cool? We have a whole series of these bands and different things. So Penny will tell you what you can earn. All right. So what is DevOps? How much thinking do you give to DevOps these days, or is it solved? Fairly well. It's not a new concept, but we're. What's the definition to you, Clay? Yeah. Just by. Yes. Has anyone got a better definition? Yes. Yeah, I think the team includes the product owner. By the way, Scrum has just been updated. If you wanted to know, that they updated a few of the rules, but and one of them was the definition of a team. But I think it is, the cycle from a PBI, a request, to production, and you've got to be monitoring. You've got to be measuring, so that you can see what you're doing. We have a dashboard for all our projects, and actually we have it replaying on here throughout the day all the time, so if you ever walk past, you can probably look up and see it, but starts with measuring, trying to reduce that cycle time. So let's talk about low-code solutions first. It's for the non-technical, it's for people that want a visual development environment, fast delivery, and Microsoft keeps starting with a picture of the user. They're spending billions in this area. Power Platform is a big play for them, and they have this guy that they talk about. I think it's called Wally. I picture my user as a non-technical user, or maybe an old dude who is trying to just use this. And obviously, these guys are going to develop a lot of solutions, and we will be picking up some of those and trying to integrate. It's a different story than the old Access Power developer or Excel macro maker. It's primarily for the non-technical user, which they're calling the citizen developer now. That's Microsoft's new term. It is cheap to get it up and running, and it should be your first port of call when you're looking at some solutions. How many people have played with Power Apps? 4, 5. Oh, not enough. That should be your homework tonight. Go home, see what you can do very quickly, just so you know what it does. Maybe show your mum or your dad. Should be fun. Now, here's the things they don't talk about that you should think about. They all seem to have vendor lock-in. They all are less powerful than doing, a developer Angular, React, Vue solution type thing. They have monthly dollars and can be changed at any point. They have plenty of maintenance issues, and they have security risks because when these people want to do something, you grant them access to do the thing they ask, but it usually is giving them more power than you're really thinking about at that point in time. And so a citizen developer, you saw those people that are trying to get stuff done, it can be adding risk to your company. All right, who do you think of when you think of low-code vendors? If this, then that. No, I don't think they're a very complete solution, but they are a competitor to Power Automate or Microsoft Flow. Any others? WordPress are more a CMS story. No, I don't. You can do a lot with WordPress these days, but I wouldn't put that in this scope. Any others? Excel. All right, Microsoft. Yes. All right. So these are the big guys. Salesforce. Salesforce have a beautiful form solution. I was amazed. My sister runs a fairly substantial company overseas, and she built her entire thing. She has a very low IT budget, and she builds the whole thing herself. She's not technical. She did it all in Salesforce. OutSystems, they're the big player. Mendex, Microsoft are up here. ServiceNow, a bit of a surprise for me, but they are all over the place. and Zoho, Oracle are down here, but they're the big guys. But Microsoft are the ones growing the fastest in this area. Most people would probably say OutSystems are the leader, and Salesforce they beat Microsoft in the dynamic space, but not the whole story. So there they are. So this is their story: Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. Who's used Power BI? Most, okay. And who's used Power Virtual Agents? Okay. Oh, Pete, what was it like? Is it in production?
When I used it, it wasn't. But we were just using it as a proof of concept.
Right. So it's a bot story, and inside this story it's all driven by the data connectors and the common data service and the AI builder. All right. So Power Apps is the big one, and I won't go through that in detail, but to tell you, it's a very fast way to build a GUI, and it has a monthly cost. That monthly cost for a single app is $160 a year. So it's cheap. I think that's cheap, right? And unlimited is $700 or $660 per year. Okay, I would say that's cheap. There is a 2.5-hour presentation by Callum from our office, who does a whole lot of this stuff. He walks through how he's built a series of things. You can watch that. I think it's pretty good. He calls it the Tesla of software development. And he goes through, and this is just took one of his slides, but he basically jumps into Power Apps, uses the cost estimator to start with to show you, and then within a few clicks, I'm not kidding, he comes over here, presses create, chooses cost estimator, presses create, and presses open app, and then presses the run button in the top right. Needs a little bit of green on it, doesn't it? And bingo, you are up and running. And then that's where your work starts, but you have a problem. They talking about the guy that runs this team is called James Phillips, and he's always talking about 5 minutes to wow. This is less than 5 minutes to wow, but and if you think about it, he was the man behind Power BI, and that's definitely very quick to get going. All right. If you have some Google Analytics and you want to just give that, connect that in, put your URL, you are looking at, Power BI slicing and dicing on some great data of your own to see how it's working. So then there's the Power Automate. Who here has used Power Automate? Not a soul. Really? No one's used Power Automate. Okay, who's used if this then that? Okay, that's half the room. That is surprising, because Power Automate is pretty phenomenal, and it's very powerful. We have more and more processes every month being done. If you're doing something repetitively with data in any of these common web apps, this is the way to do it. It is the glue between many different systems that you have. They give you thousands of runs for free, and then they start charging you. And it doesn't take long before the bill is racking up. Sometimes clients get us in because they're paying too much per month, where people throughout the company have just added so much to this stuff. And a lot of it is repetitive work as well. So there's a lot of connectors, and it's pretty phenomenal. If you are just doing it per user plan, it's $250 per year. And if you are doing it with these robotic processes and AI stuff in it, you'll be paying $660 a year. All right, and here is what these flows look like. If you haven't seen them, they're pretty visual, and you click on each one of these and you can see what's going on. So we typically, even for an event like this, Penny has a series of things that, check Meetup and check Eventbrite and check, Facebook and, check Twitter, and she drives them in, because all we want to know in Sydney is how many pizzas are we buying tonight and what's going on. And she could quickly go to all these sites and add them up, but if you're doing something repetitively, you could just run this and get your data. All right, so there's your composing, and there's your Azure functions in here, and anything you can think of, you can do, but it usually results in an Excel spreadsheet being updated or an email being sent. Now, how many people here have heard of Power Automate Desktop? 2. And how many people have opened it and created something? Okay, 1. All right. So this might be worth even showing you. This is a new thing. And the reason that you might like this is the first bullet point there. See, it's free. Okay, anyone not on Windows 10? Oh, God. Anthony, what the hell? What are you on? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he doesn't follow any rules at SSW. He went and he sent me a message one morning and said, I'm in love. I go, what? He goes, I got an M1. I didn't even know what an M1 was. He goes, it runs Windows faster than Windows. I didn't even understand the conversation. Yes. Are you still in love with it? Still. Wow. All right. So anyway, everybody in the room gets this for free except Anthony. And let me just open it up. It's Power, and you will see this little guy, Power Automate Desktop. All right. So that is pretty phenomenal. Now let's just assume that you're Paris, and you are now doing some work in a company, and you have to check your emails because you have an important client that you're the account manager of. Orders go into your database, and email gets generated. Somehow you've got to get this into your other system so that you daily it makes a PDF or a CSV or both, puts it into a file server, and then you then have to put it in for processing into another system. Could be Xero or MYOB or some other, even a mainframe app. Could be any of these type of things. So what somebody is doing is they're manually doing this repetitive task every day. They go to their inbox, look for things, they put things in, or they're checking a file server, they're doing all these type of things. So their first step of improvement is they would start to try to automate these with a flow. Eventually that person will turn into a citizen developer, and that person might come in here. Let's just say it's I love using Northwind process orders. Okay, cool. So that's the first step, and now we've got this process orders. What do I do now? Well, this thing pops open. Go, funny. And then I will come in here and I'll have to work out what I'm going to do. The first thing is I go to the file server and I go to my CSV file and I do these different steps. Then I go to a website and I upload it, I put it into Google Drive or whatever I do. And you can just look down here and see all these things you can do. So I could go to File, Get File Path. I could drag that on because I want to get that file that's on the server, whatever this manual process I'm doing. I could select a file, and now I'd go onto my file server and look for that CSV file. And once I've got that CSV file, I've got all these variables. In this case, I've got the root path, the directory, file name, the file extension, all these different things. So I've got that first bit, and from there, what might I do? Well, once I've got that file, I might go and upload it into G Drive or something. So I could click on this desktop recorder up here. This is a recorder, and it will record what I'm doing. And what would be the first thing I might do? Well, I might crack open Chrome. So I could go start recording, and then it will record everything that I'm doing on my machine. And I guess the first thing I should do is open up Chrome or Firefox or something. So I'll just come down here. Oh, Edge? All right, I'll do it on Edge. All right. So new window. There we go. And that will open up. And see how it's recording what I'm doing here? And now I would go to, I don't know, maybe I would now type drive.google.com. Okay, and then I would, there we go. And then I'd open up that spreadsheet of orders that I do every day. That didn't open. So I will right click and I would go preview. And you'll see that it's doing everything that I do, Then I might open up the calculator and I'd go get that total and go to the calculator and add 10% and then it will just do everything that I'm doing. Is this impressive so far? Yeah. So I think I will, look, then I might copy that item. Sorry. Oh, why can't I copy in this? Oh, okay, I'm in preview. Anyway, then I get that URL and I copy that. There we go. And it's got all that stuff. All right, so everything that I do, every keystroke, etc. So I will, I'll reset that. I will close that. And I will close this guy. But what is that how you would do your browser interactions? Like we've seen recorders before, right? And they can be somewhat, what's the word? Flaky, yes. Yes. So they give you a different option, and I will close that down. They also give you a web recorder. Okay, that would be now, I have seen examples of this being used for mainframe systems where people go into a terminal on their machine and they copy pieces off this and then they put it in some other system that they use. They're trying to get it out. So they enter all this, they go to this system where they have modern stuff and then they're putting in the mainframe and they're doing all this. And you can automate the whole thing because it's a desktop client recording everything. Or you can do this web recorder and you come into the web recorder and which one do you want to use? Well, who's a fan of Edge, obviously, so we could use that. I wasn't planning on it. But that will open up Edge. And what it will now do is record every single thing in there. Now, for this to work, you do need to have the extension. I don't think I've done that here. There we go. I was saying, hey, to use this web automation in your flows, select Get Extension to download and install on the selected browser. After installing, be sure to enable the extension in the browser. So it's starting off by saying, look, if you want me to work, you have to go and get that extension and then we can start talking together. So that is the extension you would need, the Microsoft Power Automate extension, and that gives you the ability to automate those manual processes. All right, so that will allow you to fill in a form, get some stuff, plonk it somewhere else, etc. And this is way less flaky, obviously. It's not non-flaky, but way less than what I was showing you before, which should be more used for desktop apps. All right, so that gives you a bit of an idea there that you can do that. And once you've done that, you've put all those things together, you've done it, all you have to do is do it once. And then what do you need it to do? Loop around until it gets to the end of your inbox or whatever the process is. So then you come up here for your loops and you put it in a cycle. You've got conditionals here, if this, then leave, once you've got to the end and there's no files left in that folder. You've got a whole lot of variables here, So, who thinks this is pretty cool? Who likes the look of this? Okay. Who does not like it? Wouldn't use it? What's your concerns, guys? Oh, you prefer code, yes. But even though you prefer code, you probably wouldn't build up a coding solution just to move some files in and enter some stuff if this would solve a new problem, right? Right. Okay. So code runs the world. Yes, Pete.
It's very reminiscent of the old Office macro recording.
Yeah.
And one of the good things about that was it converted it to VBA so that you could then actually work with the code that you'd recorded. maybe we're not quite there yet. I don't know.
Yeah, that was very good until what was that bug that came out? Do you remember? The I love you virus, whatever it was. It ran a macro. You don't remember? Okay, well, the world was running on Excel spreadsheets. It was a world that Peter still idolizes. But what happened was somebody sent someone a file saying, I love you, and it was a VBS file or something, and it went and did some chronic damage throughout the world. And then they had to turn off all these permissions so you couldn't do anything, and that's why we're here, Pete. Yes. So this won't do anything bad like that, and you can't turn it into a file that you can email. But look, obviously, probably 90% of you think it's awesome, and we have to work on these two guys. But it's amazing for free. Yes.
Developers, so we can sort of look at that and understand that. But I think Microsoft might be overstating the abilities of citizen developer. I reckon they would even struggle with sort of going through something like that to develop it. What's a variable? What's a loop? They're the sorts of things that's, the people that I train, they struggle with, opening up a file, let alone doing stuff like that. So they may be overstating what citizens can do, perhaps.
Look, you are spot on. You are seeing this for the first time. Stephen, we should be able to look at this and think this is going to generate a lot of work for us, okay? People are going to get a little way down this path, and then they're going to need a proper overhaul of their Power Automate architecture, and we are going to re-architect it and put it into other solutions. Now, be aware, they give this away for free. They want you to automate stuff, but they also want you to start getting used to this, because when you have data in the web, such as Salesforce and moving stuff out to Office 365, this is not the tool. You would be better off using the proper Power Automate in the browser as a service that has all the connectors and does everything for you solidly. This is hacky, when it comes down to it. But it's something that you guys should all play with and just know what it does. Anyway, enough of that. Any other questions? All right. So that's that. All right. Feels like access. Oh. No, I don't remember access.
People got themselves into danger with access and then needed people to help them out.
Can you write code or scripts for it?
You can, and you can call any web API as well. So they're fairly extensible. So I was at a meeting with Microsoft before Access was named Access. It was called Cirrus at the time. And I went trekking in Nepal, and I took with me the Access book. And there was 2 volumes, there's the whole thing. And I read it on that trek in 1991 or 92, yeah, a long time ago. Anyway, reminiscing, isn't it fun? We are so old. Aren't we old? Yeah, I remember when my dad used to reminisce, and then a few years later, he used to get the newspaper, and he would go to the, because he ran before we had the farm, he had run a service station in North Sydney, so he knew everyone that came into the service station. And so he would go to, what do you call the people that die? The obituaries, that's right. He used to go there looking down and see which names he recognised. Yes. It's only 20 years away. All right. So, thanks, Pete, for depressing me. Thank you. All right. So, now this Power Automate desktop replaces all these scheduled tasks. Remember all this? Who had some of these? Yes. Oh. You had code. All right, but it doesn't matter. Some of us use these things, and they were cool. This is not the way to go. If you see anyone with any of these, you convert them to Power Automate. All right, great. So it can send emails, can perform mainframe tasks, create and save files, does lots of cool stuff. And it's all drag and drop. And you can, there is some heavy things that I've seen some of the guys put together here. And Microsoft have a whole set of samples too. The DevOps rating for this is fairly high because you can check it into source code. You can, they originally released this without any of that ability, but now you can do it, you can test it, you can deploy it. Let's move on to Visual Studio 2019. Who is on the latest version of 2019? Okay, half of us. All right. That latest version. Oh, maybe. Yeah. One of the first things I might mention to you is the installer has changed. So did anyone, like, people were using the installer because they want multiple versions and things, but when you click on Visual Studio Installer now, did anyone notice anything different? You all missed something. What normally happens when you click on Visual Studio Installer? Oh, it updates. All right, that's mean, but normally it pops open asking you to elevate your permissions. Some people used to get upset about that, and it was high on the user voice site. Anyway, so they've got a nicer installer, but the version that I wanted to show you is called 16.10. All right, that's the latest version that you should be having. And they've put a bunch, but I'm calling out a few of these, which is the WebView 2, the blocking and deadlocking auto analyzers, the installer, which I just mentioned, and the Azure app configuration. So let's just talk about this guy first, because we are doing mobile apps, we're doing desktop apps, and sometimes, like, basically what we're doing these days when you think about it, is we're just putting a bunch of widgets together. You know, we're working out what they need, we're trying to be as flexible as possible. We know web apps are kind of the simplest thing to do because they've got a lot of reach, but native apps are also popular. When clients come to us, we talk about Xamarin, Flutter. We talk about a native app on their machine. Microsoft are updating WPF, believe it or not. Or we could just do it in Angular and give you an iconic, like reuse that code, or we could do it in React and React Native. You know, it's a bit of a mess. So when it comes down to it, you start looking, all right, so I'll do this bit here. This is going to be core, and these graphs here will be native. Now we already have this piece here, and we have this on the desktop, so we could reuse that, or we could develop it once and use it in two places. We'll have a web view down here as well. So this piece in Blazor or in Xamarin apps, WPF apps, web apps, etc., should be common as possible, where it makes sense. If you're just displaying a list of data, a table is fine. If you want something richer, that's not appropriate. So here is an example, and there's just a lot of choices out there. Now we have that guy. Who here generally, like if you're talking mobile, would go Xamarin as a choice? Okay, Stephen. Who would go Flutter? One hand. Who would go React Native? Oh, 2, 4, 6, 7. Oh, React Native's popular, big in Newcastle. What else have we got? Who'd go a normal PWA? Yeah, a few. Okay, a few. 4. Whatever. Who'd just go old Cordova? Nope. Not even Peter. Okay. All right. Any others? No? Well, native with what? Oh. Not even a cross compiler. Wow. All right. Hardcore. Okay. Yeah, who'd go just native? Forget these cross compilers. Just I'll build it twice, 3 times if you want. No? No one in Newcastle. All right. Anyway, look, there's clearly not a winner here. Flutter is doing pretty good. Okay? But look, it's not very easy to measure this stuff. This is a pretty terrible way of measuring it. But it is indicative. Let's talk about the blocking and deadlocking. We're getting more and more high traffic. Our web APIs are
are trying to, they're at scales. These type of bugs are very hard to reproduce. They're a mess. You get a dump file. Anybody ever work with dump files? DMP files? Right, okay, so there is now a new deadlocking auto analyzer. So if you've got a deadlock thread, this is a much better, improved way of analyzing these dump files. So you get messages, warning, finalizer queue may be blocked or cause high memory usage. You still got to obviously go and fix it, but this is much better than silently failing or trying to get dump files and trying to, what do I do? It's a real terrible problem. So the installer, which I mentioned before, is a nicer launcher. How often do you guys need to open multiple copies of Visual Studio 2019? Okay, so there's about a quarter of you, and the rest of you just run in one version. Who never uses Visual Studio? Oh, okay. Who only does VS Code? Oh, right, okay, so there's a third of you. Okay, which means the other numbers didn't add up. Okay, who loves Newcastle? Oh, look at that, 100%. All right, just excellent. So developers often want multiple instances, just like you have multiple instances of VS Code. The elevation was annoying, the extra install update steps. Plus, one thing I didn't tell you, gee, I should tell you this, because apparently this makes you excited. Oh, who likes that? Who couldn't care less about that? Yeah, I couldn't care less. I don't do that. Half the time something doesn't work, and then I go off it. Anyway, and you weren't complaining before. Nobody said, oh, that's a great installer, but I wouldn't use it because there's no dark mode. Anyway, so we've got reported problem, provided suggestion. And these suggestions that you will see here are in this developer community. Has anyone heard that Microsoft is going away from this and they're getting rid of user voice across their products? Who's heard of that? Oh, this Microsoft, please, please. Why do they do that? I like user voice. Yeah, they've got their developer community alternative, which look, I've spent a lot of time talking to customers, and we find those user voice things and we put those on the parking lot to talk about later. It's a very important part of the process. Yeah, that's part of my data. I don't want it touched, but anyway. So this is this is user voice. Their user voice. Okay. Oh, that's where it was. Okay. All right. So I'll just close this guy, but you've seen that. Okay, so we've seen all that, and we don't see that anymore. Isn't that cool? All right, and the Azure App Configuration Integration. These weren't integrated into Visual Studio 2019. Especially useful for us who use feature flags a bit, but basically app settings. Developers had to do a whole lot of setup to make this work. Check this out. You go into Visual Studio, you right click, you choose Add, you scroll all the way down to Connected Service here, and then it will say, hey, your service dependencies, nothing's configured. So then you press Add, and when you press Add, it goes, hello. All right, so you scroll down here and you have a new one. So it's very easy now to add secrets, it's easy to add Azure Key Vault, Azure Storage, and now Azure App Configuration. So it's not hard to set up feature flags anymore, okay? All right, our coding test just got easier. All right. So these things, or especially this last one, is the most important for your improved DevOps. There were some other things that got added as well, and that is usability improvements for Git. Okay, there is now, when you know how you right-click deploy or right-click publish, you know that's evil. Is that evil? Not evil anymore. You right-click publish and it says, would you like to set up a Git action? Done. All right. So how many people here? I'm just wondering what source control system and stuff you're using. who is using Azure DevOps or TFS or something? Okay, good. Who is using Bitbucket? Few. Who's using GitHub? Okay, all right. So that's 80% of the room. What else did I miss? GitLab. Who's using GitLab? Oh, a few. Okay, 4. Any others? Subversion. Is that a joke? Come on. Okay. Did you just like saying the word? He's still thinking about it. You can forget about it now. It's gone.
Visual Source Safe.
Visual Source. Who's the troublemaker? Where'd that come from? All right. That was fun. I had a bad experience with that because I was friends with Brian Harry, who was the inventor of TFS, which is now Azure DevOps. And I had been friends with him for some years. And one day at dinner, I asked him what he did before this. He mentioned, oh, I wrote another source control system. And I said, what was that? And he said, VSS, Visual Source Safe. And I go, oh my God. Like I was so used to making jokes about it. You don't make jokes about it to the person that invented it. They can get kind of, they explain the context of the time and why. All right. So anyway, let's talk about a few other things for C# coders, C++, XAML tools, and the Razor stuff. So we'll start with Git. I only put this in for one person. Anthony, you can now commit via a shortcut. See here? Do you know that you used to have to press this button? What a pain in the ass. Now, Control-Enter, it's gone. Is that cool? Yeah, good. All right. So, Git push, all tags. You can push all the tags simultaneously. So that is a little one. Let's talk about, you can now have a Linux debug, well, you can use your Linux binaries in Windows, all right? Anybody actually want to do that? Is there a need for this? Really? Tell us why. Oh, really? What are you doing?
Ruby on Rails development.
Say again?
So we do Rails development, and we run everything in Whistle.
What development?
Rails.
Oh, Rails.
Yeah,
Ruby on Rails.
So all our development environments running and development environments running in Ubuntu on Windows 10, and we use Whistle constantly for everything with Visual Studio Code. So that's.
And why aren't you just working on Linux?
Because there's other tools that we like that's only available on Windows.
Ah, so
the
you want
desktop environment is still superior on Windows, I think.
Right. So you just want the nice, rich developer environment.
And
cool.
it's running so close to native that it's quite usable and fast.
Oh, great. And so did you know about this already?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Cool. Excellent. All right, that's great. Now here's a demo for you. So come in here, you choose WSL2 and you're in business. Yeah, there we go. Very exciting. We don't have a need for it at SSW, but anyway, it's heavily advertised. We are actually, yes, for hosting reasons because it's cheaper.
Yeah, so that's where I've heard of other people wanting this. They wanted to be able to debug things in a prod-like environment because as much as the .NET Core teams have done a great job of getting the environment similar, there's always those bits where it has to actually touch the file system that had bugs in. And yeah, I've known people who were looking for something like this. So
Matty Wicks, does this turn you on?
So I was on the Mac before, so I could get, that type of access, and now I've got a Windows machine.
Oh, right.
I feel dirty.
Yes. How long are you on a MacBook? How long?
And I've had MacBooks for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, but how long on SSW were you using it?
Oh, I had it before I started.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, didn't notice. All right.
Multiple machines.
All right, must hide that one. Okay, so refactoring. So here's lots of little things. Part of this nice developer experience we were just talking about it got nicer. So here is just the red line is what it could look like. I can clean it up, making it a bit newer. You don't need ridiculous things that say the same thing. Here's another one. So player, I don't know. Does anyone like the extra readability of going equals true? Or does anyone like it that they... Oh. Wow. You could actually... What? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
you need to swap them around there.
Okay. Do you like putting as many lines of code onto one line? Okay, so we got code analysis. So we had code analysis and we had style cop. So they've kind of got this style cop in here now, enforce code style on build. So if you ask me, that's great. That is fantastic. Now, especially if you put a JavaScript developer on your team, excellent. Make them play by some rules. Say again?
Fantastic. You need that. Any developer on your team needs that.
Yes.
Everyone.
Making developers' life in a team hard is good. So if you want to change the style colors now, the syntax colors, if you don't like green, or you can change it to blue. Oh God, is this a good thing? Do we want this type of customization?
All day trying to work out what that looks like. What if I make it just one shade lighter? Maybe that'll make me more productive.
That is a waste of time. I wish they hadn't have put this feature in. Does anybody want this feature?
That'd be really good for those colorblind people would love that.
Oh, I wonder if it's accessibility. Good point, Rochi. Gee, he doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's a bit of insightful. Yes, of course. There is a huge push towards accessibility. Huge inside Microsoft. It comes up all the time. All right. So, you ever have this problem where you want to continue with the comments running as you're adding things, or you want them to turn off? Now you can return inside a comment. It will continue. Here is an example. We can put some paste. Oh, this isn't the example. This is automatically adding using. Oh, I see. Oh, all right. Oh, I actually thought this was already done. Maybe it's because of ReSharper. All right. Okay, there we go. So copy paste automatically adds the using. All very cool. A little thing. IntelliSense to insert a semicolon for object creation. Who's happy? Okay. There we go. All right. The amount of pain that the developer world has had with missing semicolons. All right. C#9 records are now colorized. Is that good? Anyone care? No. Nobody. Not even Rochi? No? Right, okay. All right. C++, any C++ developers? Okay, one. Okay. This is going to... runtime memory errors. So these happen. Now we have these errors, which are a bit nicer. Exciting? All for you. Okay. So XAML. Say again? Well, I thought if you choose C#, C++, you want maximum pain. Isn't that the whole idea?
Well, yes, it's definitely an exercise in self-flagellation most of the time, but things like this definitely make it easier.
Right. Okay. All right. Maybe you could switch to C#. Maybe. All right. So XAML. There's more and more energy in our company on XAML, especially with UWP and Xamarin and Blazor, I guess. So we've got these light bulbs added for generating properties and setting the design data context for new view models. And we've got these experimental razor stuff. Okay, so we've just done Australia's second biggest auction site, all on Blazor, and it is lightning fast, which is what they wanted. Here we have this. You turn this on here, and it works with live share. I should just open up Visual Studio. Oops. And when you're sharing code with others, are you sharing screens, or are you using the, I'll just come in here. Is anyone using this live share button here? Anyone? Oh, Matt, who are you using it with? Really? Okay. All right. So if you want two people writing code, you want somebody working more closely than screen sharing where you're telling them what to do, that's the way to go. And has anyone tried it and they don't like it?
I haven't tried it in years. But
right.
It was okay, but always sort of had a few issues.
Well, I am just going to see if I can convince anyone. I'll do a new project. Gregory, you got your computer around? I'm going to get you to do something useful. I will just create a little console app. And what will I call it? Greg's I need help. And I'll do C#5, .NET 5. Think of something intelligent to write. Greg? So I'll just give you guys a very quick demo of this. And I will, once this is, so imagine I get to here and I don't know how to do something. I will pop this open. So I'm going to click on this live share button here because I'm now in this code here. All I've got is hello Newcastle. I'll go live share. Oh, you know what I'd like you to do? Can you close Visual Studio and only do it in the browser? Pretend you're on your phone and I'm harassing you after work. Copy link. I'm going to send you an email. There we go. Just send him an email. Now, you probably shouldn't click on random links when I think about it. But anyway, you should get that email, and maybe you can start helping me make my code faster. Can you do that? He doesn't know what to do. Is that a yes? Have you got my link? Yeah. Invitation link, copy to your clipboard, send to anyone you want, anyone you trust. Are you doing it in the browser or in Visual Studio? Okay. Isn't this fun? Let's see how responsive it is. All right, while you're... Have you got it?
Yep.
Give us some commentary.
Yeah, just loading down all the extensions.
Oh, look at that. Greg has joined. Now, does this go into my check-in, my commit, or you get the credit? There we go. All right. It's not going to make my code any faster.
I think it'll be slower.
Yeah, Probably best sharing screens.
All right, so anyway, that's pretty cool. You can do it in the browser, it can help, you know. It's sometimes better than using Teams and screen sharing. Yes. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Now, what's wrong with my thread? Will it tell me my uppercase? Yeah, I know, but isn't it meant to fix this for me? Actions, refactoring. Oh, thanks, you'll do it for me. Even better. There we go. Anyway, there you've got a demo. Since none of you use this stuff, it's worth trying out. Good in the right time. Okay. Now, I have, how many minutes do I have left? Our illustrious leader? 5 more minutes? Okay, all right. So, light bulbs added, which is, you'll see lots of these things across. I've put a few here. You can just see in general it's getting richer. Less reason to buy ReSharper. Who's still buying ReSharper? Okay. All right.
It's too slow.
It is a bit slow, yes. I think that's unfair because a lot of the times people have a performance problem and they don't know what it is, so they turn off ReSharper. And that doesn't actually mean that problem was ReSharper, but it is a common reaction. So we've got other improvements, HTML and C# colorization, renaming C# symbols, reflected in closed razor files, added null checks, better mixed content formatting. Okay. So there's lots of cool stuff in there. And the Git stuff really helps your DevOps stuff. So I have a whole series of other things where I wanted to talk, but I will do that next month or a future month. I will tell you that, this mural, a lot of fun getting that together. So that was awesome. How many people have actually seen it in the daytime? 5, 6. Okay, cool. I think it's awesome. We have to do something even more awesome on this side, so we'll see what happens. We're hiring. If you want to talk about joining the team in Newcastle, talk to Matt or talk to Penny, or there's a whole bunch of cool guys you'd be working with. I have scratched the surface on my talk. I've done the first 2 bits. I wanted to talk about VS Code and all the changes there. The data, the big data stuff, and they're not giving the developers enough love, but that's probably because they're working with a lot of the big data solutions. So basically, and then there's the data warehouse stuff. So Azure Data Warehouse is essentially RIP, and it's Synapse all the way. So there's the front-end tech, Angular, React, Vue, Svelte, and Blazor. They're the big guys. Oh, and I should say, if you look at our rules as an example, so Matt did a whole bunch of that. So if you were to go to our rules, and I might just come here and open up a rule. There has been changes afoot thanks to Matt and some of the guys, but if you come down to one of these rules here, so let's just jump into one of these, the value of consistency. We have this one coming up, so check out this. Now this was based on SharePoint. The back end of this is all stored in SharePoint with content management system. If you click this guy, we end up over here. Now you'll find that this is miles faster, and the reason this is miles faster is because this is using Gatsby. So the big push these days is static sites. Static sites are blazing, well, it's the wrong word to use now, isn't it? They're very fast, and Azure make it very cheap if you're going to host in static sites. So that is kind of how we've gone it. But then you have the problem where you want dynamic content. And so we had to solve that, and might even do a talk on all that, because You should do a talk on that, Matty. But anyway, that's the front end tech. A lot of this is moving to static sites as well. Also, there'll be good old ones. There's a few points that I won't make right now. There's also Azure and the augmented reality stuff, the Azure Arc stuff. Anyone seen the Azure Arc stuff? Okay, so Microsoft are putting more and more and more investment on the edge, and basically there is let me just go back a couple of slides. I might just tell you. Has anyone seen Microsoft Mesh? Okay, we might talk about that, but that is phenomenal. That's really, really amazing. It's basically a derivative from the HoloLens team. So the HoloLens team is essentially a guy called Alex Kipman, a Brazilian guy. He spent some billions of dollars on HoloLens 2 now. And we now are having Microsoft giving us lots of examples of how this type of technology is being reused in other scenarios. It's for business reasons. These devices are too expensive to have, the odd gamer want to pay, $30, $40 for a headset or whatever. These are going to be expensive things, and they're for business. Anyway, there's things to talk about there. Yeah, lots of that type of stuff. So, in summary, there is scan that guy and you'll get some points. I'll give that to you. All the SSW guys here should have their phones on them. We have QR codes in the back which you can scan and get some of these cool little prizes. If you also want to give feedback, that would be the best thing that you can do. I know Anthony will be giving his talk to a few other places, so any feedback is going to be appreciated. Same for me. Thank you. Now, I want to thank Clay for putting this together, and Peter and Rochi, all the guys that put it together. They keep it going. They're amazing. And also, has anyone heard we are having an opening party? You're the first people to come in. So this Friday, we'll be having an opening party if you want to come along for some free champagne. I'm also doing a talk on 7 ways to build your developer profile as well, so that might be interesting. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Clay. 5:45, you have to go to Eventbrite. Yeah. But Penny will answer all those questions if you want to come to a party with champagne. I guess developers don't drink champagne, do they?
It's going to be beer as well.
Oh.
You're paying.
Okay, yes. You can get cheap beer, it's just Newcastle.
I have a QR code if anyone wants to RSVP for Friday. It's from 5:30. We're just going to do nibbles and hang out and have some beers. Adam will do a cool talk. Hopefully not this long.
Oh, I wasn't long.
Thank you everybody for coming. We'll be back next month at the Mudbath office. So that's over that way somewhere, I think. Near the Ibis, yeah. So that'll be our next stop on the road series. We have somebody from Mudbath speaking. I don't know who or about what yet, but we will find out. We'll update Meetup, keep an eye there, and we'll tweet about it and do all the usual things. But thank you everybody for braving the COVID times and coming back out. It really does mean a lot to me. And thank you, Adam, for putting this on, and Penny for everything you've done behind the scenes here. She wouldn't let me clean up anything. Right, yeah. Thank you very much.